Boom, we're live.
Welcome to another episode of the Downtown Jiu-Jitsu Club podcast. We got a special podcast for you all today. Our good friend Meek in the house. Welcome back, Meek. How are you?
Welcome back, Meek.
What's up, Meek?
Yeah, so we got the legend here, and last week we took a week off. That's totally my fault. We had a lot of things we're navigating through, a very interesting time we're going through as far as managing post-pandemic. And but yeah, we're back and we are excited. We had a lot of feedback from all of you, and that felt pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where people are watching and asking, "Where's the show?" And
Yeah.
I missed you guys. And
Yeah, getting people coming in to the school and people actually talking about it, like, hey, we guys talked about this on the podcast. Oh, that was really funny. Or, hey, you guys should, give some topics. You guys should talk about this on the podcast next time.
yeah, it's cool because we obviously don't have a million watchers, but knowing that there is engagement from the community, it definitely puts a little fuel in our tank, I would imagine, for sure, for mine.
Seeing that they actually listened to the first 15 minutes to get the house notes, and they're like, "Oh, it actually does keep us informed." That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the part I'm most excited about. Over the years, we'd have so many conversations, and sometimes you spend a lot of time and energy trying to get a message across, and then the only person who got that message was the person you spoke to. You have a lot more speaking to do. So just being able to cast a wide net has been very cool. And let's get right to it.
The first thing is the merchandise drop and the grand opening, just rescheduling it.
Yeah, another important note would be we are moving the next merch drop to August 7th, which is a Saturday. And we're also going to make that into the soft grand opening of this weight room at the school. So all things pushed towards August 7th. We spoke about doing it sooner, and we're actually supposed to do it on Saturday. And I thought, people are not really paying attention, and we'll be able to push it, because we're kind of behind on all these things we're trying to accomplish here. And then some of the guys were asking, so.
I heard whispers, and I was like, "Oh, they remember."
Yeah. And
They're like, you guys getting ready? I'm like, yeah, we are.
Yeah. Definitely felt like I needed to take a shower after, just feel like we let some people down. So apologies. And we're going to make a much stronger effort to be on top of these dates we're throwing out there. So going with the flow. And Meek, you have a match. You're kind of coming out of retirement a little bit this week, huh?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it retirement. It's not like I just, got lazy and fat. I mean, a little bit lazy and fat. But not lazy and fat enough to call it retirement.
Yeah, but it's exciting. How long has it been since you've been on the field? For those who don't know, you play professional kabaddi, right? In India.
I want to say 2018, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it could be 2018. I'd have to really think it through. You know how years are. They blend together.
So there's this concept of ring rust in that sport. What do you think?
Man, I did 14 professional seasons. I think I'll be okay. I played it over 1,000 games for sure, because a tournament would have 3 or 4 games, and you'd play 20 to 30, sometimes 40 tournaments a year.
Wow.
It was very intense. So yeah, it's like you've done something over 1,000 times in a live competition. It's very hard to get butterflies when it's that routine, and some
Game
people
slows down, right?
Well, I don't know about slows down, but it carries over pretty well to what I tell people about competition in general with regards to jiu-jitsu. Even though I don't compete in jiu-jitsu, I did probably somewhere between 400 and 600 amateur wrestling matches, and at least minimum 1,000 kabaddi matches. And there's something about competition that is the training itself. And so you have like the lowest form of training is your first day. You're like, this is jujitsu and this is aikido. Aikido doesn't work. This is jujitsu. And you like explain it. So you went from like absolute beginner, doesn't know anything, to someone that can at least distinguish the sports. Like if you're from, some country that doesn't have what we could call American sports, you'd have to have football explained to you before you could distinguish it from what the rest of the world calls football, which we call soccer. So similarly, like, okay, you start, now you're not an absolute novice beginner, you kind of like can recognize the sport, and then you maybe learn a couple techniques, and then after you're maybe competent enough to drill them, and then you can maybe start rolling live, and rolling live is in our normal day-to-day training experience, kind of the higher form of training, right? So you've got your preferred opponents in the gym. Oh, this guy, he rolls good. He's gentle. This guy, he spazzes. I'm afraid of that. I'm not ready. I can't control the spaz. So you've got, the ones you're comfortable with, and the ones that you're uncomfortable with. That's like a higher form of training. And more uncomfortable is live competition against a stranger. You don't even know this person. It's like in the red corner, some person shows up and they're looking at you the same way you're looking at them.
It's like a pop quiz.
Yeah. So you've done, the lower form of training, the higher form of training, and the highest form of training would be competition. And sometimes we think of competition as like this big thing that like reflects on who we are as a person, but really it's just a high form of training. So the butterflies that we get from competition, that is actually what we're after, because you can't recreate the fear in the comfort zone of your own gym. You can't recreate the discomfort. You can't recreate the lack of familiarity. You come into the gym, it's like, cheers, everybody knows your name, right? I feel fine. I know this guy. Your first day wasn't like that, but after a while it's so routine, it's comfortable. But that same process can occur if you compete a lot, like a lot, where it's like, I can't go to a kabaddi game without the entire, like, people in the circle, like, knowing who I am. I have, in India, showed up at, like, we were driving down the random road. We're like, oh, look, a tournament. We pulled over, right? And I get out of the car, and the tournament stopped. And they're like, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest. Because it's like, I'm the only American player. So, and, like, they stopped, and they, it's like, we have the American player here. Because it's just, you're recognized. So that is a comfort zone where you don't have to be like, hi, I'm so-and-so, like, don't judge me. All that insecurity that humans have in a new place. I have like the opposite. It's like everyone knows exactly who I am. Not just because I played well, but because I was like not from the culture. So I stuck out.
That's interesting, right? We were talking about that in, I think, the last episode of a lot of those, the martial arts that have sport traditions. Those are typically the most effective, efficient martial arts, because you have to deal with that, right? Like you have to deal with yourself, like dealing with all the emotions that run through you before or during confrontation.
Yeah, absolutely. And even a step below that, even if you do not decide to do that scripted, and it's the unscripted aspect of sport competition that really generates the best results. It's unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to try today. You don't know what they've been working on. And even after you get used to someone, your normal training partner, it's the one day they do a surprise, it's like it really catches you off guard. And it's that live challenge that really pushes you to your edge. Then you stand at your edge, you look over, you take a couple steps, and then you grow. And with compliant training, you don't get that same type of growth. You don't build the neural networks that respond to spontaneity.
And there's levels, right? Like
Absolutely.
There's guys who, like in anything, there's levels. And I've met people who've never competed at all, and they are really tough, and they do really well. And it's actually, no, let me take that back. They are competing, right? There's levels of competition too, right? The feeling of not wanting to come in to train, or maybe you're at training, but you don't want to train with that particular person now that's open mat or sparring. So those within themselves are competitions that
Well,
you're dealing with?
we could make like an analogy. Let's say you do just in-house practices with like the Canucks, right? It's an NHL team in Canada, hockey. And you never actually do a game, but your practice partners are like the best. If you're doing ice hockey in, I don't know, somewhere that doesn't have ice hockey, Africa, they don't have ice hockey there, Latin America.
You're practically a Canuck.
Yeah, you're like, I played 10 games with like other people that are terrible at this game. You're not going to get as much out of it. And so even though on one level, competition against a stranger is the highest form of training, it is possible to have a higher level of skill with that lower tier of training if your in-house competition is better than the out-of-house competition for other people. So we could use, go back to jiu-jitsu. If you stayed in just like Rio and you're like, I don't go to competitions, but I like, in my gym is super tough and I compete live, I train a lot. As opposed to, let's say, somewhere that maybe doesn't have a deep jiu-jitsu or wide jiu-jitsu tradition. I'm having trouble coming up with an example, but let's just pick on New Zealand. It's a small island, right? It's got like more sheep than people. So maybe you go to competitions. That's actually a bad example because that's where there's actually good grapplers there.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm thinking of it. Where have you never heard of a grappler coming from? I don't know.
Alaska.
Spain.
There's some guys in Spain. Yeah, some ex-UFC guys.
No hate to Spain. I just never.
Yeah, it's hard to come up with a country because it's so universal now. Like it wasn't like that 20 years ago. Now it's like it's hard to come up with a country. But we'll just say hypothetical country, Lamistan. And you're like, I'm from Lamistan. And I compete. I'm the national champion of Lamistan. But those guys in Rio and just a normal club, they'll smash you. And so,
We're going to get some angry messages from Lamistan.
Lamistan is lame. I'm not worried about what they have to say about me.
But we're talking a lot about like competition, but in reality, the school here, this is not a heavily competition-centric school in the sense that we're always gearing up for every competition. We obviously have good competitors here, but for a moment, people who are starting this journey in martial arts, I think sometimes, looking at that and maybe, hey, I have a full-time job, I have so many responsibilities, I can't see a vision where I'm going to dedicate my life to that. So sometimes I would imagine people would become intimidated or overwhelmed with the expectations of having to do that, which in reality, people might not really have to. If we look back at what is our expectations? Like some people, they come to train and they pretty quickly get what they wanted. They can learn how to defend themselves against an average person. But then we keep comparing ourselves to the best. And sometimes the gap is so wide that people get discouraged by that. But I think it's pretty common to see people who come in and they're dedicated for, if you give 6 months of dedicated training, you're probably going to be the number one contender or the champion at the family barbecue, right? Like when you're comparing yourself to other people who do not train.
Depends on who your family is.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely depends, right?
Come from a bloodline of Circassian warriors. Habib is my cousin. Like, you're going to be more than 6 months.
But if they didn't train jiu-jitsu, they're probably getting guillotined quick, right? They're going to get, they're going to be feeding you opportunities based off their ignorance. But that's something I thought about a lot. I see people, they come in, they train, and they just see how big the gap is when they compare themselves to the black belts or to even some tough blue and purple belts. But sometimes just having that perspective of, what did you come here for? We came for self-defense. You get it pretty quick, but we actually want that offense. We want to be able to do what we want with whoever we want. What's this here? This is
I didn't know how
Meek in action.
I didn't know how to spell Kabundi, so in case we were pulling up any video, I just went to Meek's Instagram for some Kabundi clips.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't, I was not aware of this sport myself until I met Meek, and it's pretty cool. It looks like rugby, it looks like wrestling, it looks like football. But yeah, look at the athleticism on this guy.
Definitely it's part of the
very
game.
Nice.
It is completely coached.
It's a psychological part of the game, right?
Yeah, I didn't know they were filming me there. the dancing thing. It was really cold that night. I was trying to warm up.
So this is in Punjab, right?
Yeah, that's India.
Yeah, man.
This is wildly intense.
It's very aggressive.
Is that what it's gonna look like on Saturday?
I mean,
Like the same field?
no, we'll be on grass. They don't use mats too often.
Did you prefer the mats or field?
Yeah, I preferred the mats because it had better grip sometimes. But then in that particular league, they tended to have late matches, and the weather in Punjab gets pretty humid, and so it would start to get slick right when the sun set, and it was a little bit challenging.
You look like you can play for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I never played football, but I think I would have been competent at it at least.
Doug played football. Doug, you took it pretty seriously, right, in high school and
Yeah, I did.
Before high school.
And it just didn't pan out. I could have played at a reasonable level in college, but it just didn't pan out.
I'm philosophically against football.
Could have went pro on my leg.
It's a lot of CTE for
Yeah.
children, and not a lot of reward, and they don't know how to fight afterwards. I have a lot of, I've had students, they're like, oh, I played football and I wish I wrestled in high school. And then, it's just that head-to-head collision stuff that I don't like. And the head trauma is probably more prevalent than rugby because of the helmet, which is sort of, ironic.
To be honest, I was just the wide receiver. I just stepped out of bounds. I just caught the ball and went out of bounds. That's all I did. I probably got tackled 3 times my senior year.
Nice.
If you can avoid that CTE, it makes people tough too, right? Like some of the toughest people I've trained with, like, you can, it's something about
for sure.
that physical.
People play it and almost ubiquitously love it. You can't deny that, right? It's probably the sport that has replaced baseball as like the American pastime. You can't deny that either. But I'm just making like a stance of objection against the use of that sport as like a child's game. 99% of the kids that play in high school that are out there banging their heads are not going to get college scholarships. And even the ones that get college scholarships, they're not going to make much money in the NFL. Most of them don't make it. So it's like 1% of 1% get like that financial reward. And the rest of them are just getting, knocked on the noggin.
To be honest, anybody that played fullback or middle linebacker in high school, I feel like they're going to have issues no matter what. Just because, high school, you don't throw too often. It's mostly just run straight up the middle, and it's literally head-to-head contact between the 2 toughest guys on the team every play. And it's the fullback and the middle linebacker.
Yeah, I think I had a concussion playing football one season, and it was the flag football. They weren't supposed to tackle me, but I got tackled at the same time from 2 people, and I remember just felt like the TV fell, and there was like the screen was like for a second. It took me a minute to gather myself.
Yeah. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like, I fight MMA, right? So I'm aware of the dangers of MMA, but similar to like the levels of training with jiu-jitsu, I would make them far more restrictive with the competition element of MMA. I would not advise anyone to compete in MMA until they have a solid background of competition in one of the sports that lead into MMA. So you're like a high-level wrestler or jiu-jitsu guy. You have really good Muay Thai, like legit. Just, a lot of people want to do it because it's like an identity thing. I was a fighter. It's a foolish decision. It's incredibly dangerous. And I don't think the risk and reward are matched up well. Only time I've ever been knocked out was in this, though, in Kabaddi.
How'd that happen?
I shot at the dude's knees, which is like normal procedures, and he jumped over. It wasn't intentional. He did like a perfect flying knee. And I'm like going in, and I've seen it on film. It's like, I don't know where it is, but it looked crazy. Like, I'm just like dead for about 2 seconds, then I stand up. This is the worst part. I finished the game. I was like just dumb. I was like, I feel okay. These guys, they don't care. They're like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, you got okay, but yeah, just keep going. It's terrible. I would not have done that now.
That's when the risk is at its highest, right?
Absolutely.
Like in boxing, if you get the 10 count and you're like...
Yeah, that was like a very bad decision on my part. My excuse is I was knocked out. I wasn't thinking. I didn't have anyone to make good decisions for me.
It's the influence of competition too, right? It's like, it's game day. Like
that's kind of what you're after in competition is you're not molding your body anymore. That's the practice. You're molding an aspect of your personality. If you were afraid, you do it and you're not afraid anymore. If you had butterflies, you learn to get over it. If you were timid, you learn to be aggressive, right? And then after those things are gone, you realize, and this is what I would hope after someone competes enough, you're not really competing against the other person. That is the outward appearance. You're competing against the parts of yourself that are like insecure and fragile, and you're trying to break them. It's you're smelting your own gold and purifying it.
Because you got to face it, right?
Got to go in the fire. You go in the fire, you melt it, and you purify your own gold. It's not comfortable. Competition, I don't like it. I don't like it. It's scary. It's like uncomfortable. It's hard. You're sore, cut up, and weird scars I got on my body from this stuff. But it helps you reach a location in your own heart that's hard to get to otherwise. That's not to say that you can't do it. It's probably possible. I'm say surely it is. But competition is a training methodology of kind of turning you, into like a warrior, not just with your body, but like with your mind.
Do you feel like the lessons you learned from competition at that level carry back into, like, do you bring it back into training? Do you train differently based on the lessons that you learned in competition?
Yeah, because you're the same person. If something is transformative, right? You're a different person in whatever environment it is. It's transforming you. And really that's what we should aspire to, not just in competition, but in martial arts and with all of our disciplines. At the highest level of mastery, all paths are the same. Because you're not, even if you're just like a piano player, like you could master the piano, but if you haven't used the outward mastery as a means to achieve some form of inward mastery, you've failed mastery. The purpose of it, you have to take the chains of causality to the ultimate ends. You have to why, and it'll always go back to purification of the heart, becoming a stronger person, a better version of yourself. Because, we compete, one of us wins in jiu-jitsu, then what? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's we were competing against parts of ourselves that we can confront or ignore, right? And ignore them at your own peril. It's better to confront them. And because we all have it. We're human. None of us are perfected. We got issues. We have issues of fear, We have issues of weird negative energies and negative habits, thoughts about ourselves that aren't really even true. Sometimes the things that people think about themselves are silly. You're you think that about you? But that's the human nature. And you can see in many different warrior cultures, obviously jiu-jitsu rooted in Japan, they have an entire tradition of this, where they explicitly talk about this through poetry and philosophy, that confrontation with the self. And if you don't get that out of your training, you've kind of wasted your time. That's what the real purpose is. We do all this weightlifting and stuff and grinding your body and working on your mind, but you're really trying to get to the deep parts of yourself.
I saw a meme that I thought was pretty powerful. It showed a picture of Lennox Lewis. I don't know if this was his quote. I'm going to for sure misquote him. But what I remember was basically the message was, be careful of surrounding yourself by yes men. You instead should be surrounding yourself with truth seekers and strategists, because if you're not trying to seek the truth will seek you. You'll find the truth. The truth will find you. If you're not trying to look for it, it'll find you. And there's something there too, right? Ultimately, we're in the path of trying to, maybe my ego would have me believe that what I'm doing is the end all and this and that, just because it's worked well for me in the past. But in some sense, we're looking for the truth, right? We're looking for what technique can get this job done? What's the right way of dealing with that? And I thought that was a really interesting statement. And I think that might be in regards to one of the current champions who's well known for surrounding himself with yes men. And But yeah, to switch topics for them, it's actually a beautiful time for boxing right now, right? Like with all these fights coming out, and with the heavyweight division also starting to feel like it was when we were kids, right? In the 80s, and all these Holyfield, Tyson, Lennox Lewis. Now you got Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder,
Anthony Joshua.
yeah, Ruiz. Oh man, it's getting interesting again. But yeah, so
There's no disrespect to the, Klitschko brothers. They were brilliant boxers, but that was the most boring the heavyweight division had been in quite a while. And it's, that sport kind of depends on the success of the heavyweight division. And then of course the lighter weights. I mean, Canelo keeps moving up, but man, his progress has been tremendous. Like, you can really see, it's so rare to see someone at a world-class level get better, like 5-6 years in a row. Usually it's like they got to the world class and like that's it, and you just kind of like see them and you realize this guy just got better and better and better. He really works on his craft. I appreciate his dedication to that ihsan, that perfection, beautification.
Yeah, and it's inspiring, right? Imagine how many people are watching that and kind of like getting to work now. They're going out there hitting the bags, or watching what they eat. Yeah, there's something special about the people who are on that path. So yeah, what else do we have for this week that we had to communicate to our students?
What exactly is a cohort time?
Yes, so we're in a transitional stage in the sense that we have newer formats for classes with the courses, and just a lot of things moving around. So one of the things that we have that some of you might have some questions about, if you're looking at our schedule, again, if you haven't downloaded the app, make sure to do that to stay in touch and to book, reserve all things Downtown Jiu-Jitsu Club. On the app schedule, you'll see something that says cohort time. Now, the idea behind the cohort time, essentially it's an open gym. The school will be open. After August 7th, you'll be welcome to use the weight room. But generally, if you see something that says cohort time, the weight room would be open. The mat area is open. A staff member will be here in case they're needed. But the idea is for you to network with other training partners and coordinate to get together and work on some things that are important to you. So maybe you want to set up the timer to hold pads for each other. Maybe you want to spar. Maybe you want to drill. Maybe you want to work out. Maybe we're just going to come and stretch. What we're going to try to keep an eye on and try to avoid is having like an unofficial open mat where people are just forming an open mat. We have randori sessions that are meant for that, but this is more or less for you and your friends to make plans to come and use the facilities together. If you don't have plans with anyone in particular, you can still come and weight lift or stretch, but the bigger picture is to network and meet here and do your own thing. If you do plan to come alone, just assume that you're not going to have anyone to drill with, so don't be disappointed if you see cohort time. It's different than the randori sessions. Randori sessions, we're going to have a staff member here coordinating and managing your open mat experience. So we got those, and we also have the AM sessions are starting to get picked up again. So we have 6:30 a.m. That's the earliest we've ever had sessions. So on Tuesday, if you can just double check it, my mind's been a little bit foggy lately, but Tuesday and Friday, is that correct? With Brick, 6:30 a.m. and 7:15 randori session. So 6:30 will be the technical training session. Yes, 6:30 a.m. on Tuesdays, followed by a 7:15 a.m. randori session. That's with the gi. And then on Friday, same thing, 6:30 a.m. technical session, followed by a 7:15 randori session. That is no-gi. Professor Brick is managing those training sessions. Thank you, Brick. That's one of the gems of the Downtown Jiu-Jitsu Club. Brick Welch has been a pillar of the academy for longer than I can imagine. So if you are an early bird, definitely take advantage of that. And then we also have a 7:15 a.m. randori session on Thursdays. So obviously when the pandemic hit, everything got turned upside down, and we dealing with financial challenges and just so many different unique challenges, and which ultimately resulted in our schedule being slimmed down dramatically. And now we're starting to see that the schedule is starting to get back to what it was, and hopefully better than ever, more options than ever. So definitely check that out and keep your eye on the schedule. It's very dynamic, especially in the near future. There's going to be a lot of things popping up on there. And as soon as things become more and more stabilized and more routine, the long-term vision is to just, put some more exciting things on there. Things that are not necessarily going to be like long-term programs, but, just looking for different ways to add value to the community. So keep your eye out on the schedule. And was there anything else with the house notes? Just a quick recap if you're tuning in late. We got the merch drop and the soft grand opening of the weight room. Everything's pushed to Saturday, August 7th. Keep an eye out on the schedule because we're going to change the class structure for that date too. We're going to try to make it a situation where you're going to maybe want to bring a friend to partake in a maybe free self-defense seminar. So we still got some details to work through, but mark the calendar. Saturday, August 7th, Downtown Jiu-Jitsu Club merch drop, bring a friend event. We're going to have a good time, God willing. So what else do we have? That's pretty much it with the house notes.
Yeah, that's all the house notes. We had some questions from the post you put out, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, the Instagram post. Mm-hmm. So thank you all for your engagement. So what do we get from feedback?
One thing, just shout out to the top level team. Adriel Toro got an 18-second KO this past weekend. George, if you could put it to the laptop.
Yeah, that's a good shot right there. Boom.
Yeah, MMA debut. So shout out Team Top Level.
Beautiful.
Shout out Mr. Toro.
Yeah, if you're in the Niles area, the Top Level MMA school, good friends of ours, like family. Bernie is running the school with Leon and Marcus, and they're doing a fantastic job. And they got a really good MMA training there. Chris Albania, who's like a old school, really tough, really talented coach. I know he's been putting in work there for as long as I can remember. So good culture, good team, and
Chris is a great coach.
Congratulations!
I've taken some privates with him. He's such a good guy.
Yeah. He used to fight in the Ironheart Crown. I think if I remember correctly, way back in the 20 years ago. And what else do we have there?
Somebody asked advice for weight loss in their 40s.
You have to do a special exercise called pushbacks.
Pushbacks?
Yeah, that's where you push back from the table and stuff. It's very specialized.
Yeah, diet is a really...
it's tricky.
It can be very complex because you're dealing with sometimes with... obviously, I'm not the most qualified person. I'm not even qualified to answer that. But based off my life experience and observing others, I think there's a tremendous value in doing a hormonal profile because you might have some hormonal issues that even if you clean the diet up, it might be cause for you not to see the results. I think there's a tremendous value in doing obviously a food sensitivity test, and trying to test your what's going on in the gut, because sometimes it's not that easy as I think ultimately if you starve yourself, you're going to lose weight. Mm-hmm. So the whole calorie intake, what's coming in, what's coming out, there's obviously I think some value in that. But looking at the hormonal profile, looking at your food sensitivity, And also seeing if there's something in the gut. Maybe there's some bacteria in the gut that shouldn't be there. Maybe those things get figured out and just everything finds its balance, and you get better results of the sacrifices you're making.
I feel like it comes down from choosing between like what body composition do you want compared to like what number do you want on the scale. Because if you're naturally just a 200-pound guy, but you just want to be 185 to be 185, I don't think that's important. I feel like you should really worry on like your body composition, your muscle to fat ratio, like how you feel, your functional movement, how your joints are working, how you like, do you have brain fog all day? I think you just really, that ties into food sensitivity stuff, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should focus on that. And if your body is like healthy and moving well and you feel good in training, your brain, like your mind feels good, clear, then I don't think you should ever worry about the scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in that. You know, one thing we're working out here at the school is I'm super excited about this partnership that's in the works with Designs for Health. They're coming out with their product line specifically for athletes called Designs for Sport. And we're going to have more access to a lot of their professionals. And the plan is to bring them on the show at some point and kind of break down, from their experience and their training, a lot more of these types of topics. So yeah, Designs for Health, it's, in my experience, like the highest standard of quality for supplements that I've been exposed to. And yeah, we'll have a lot more information on that developing, and we'll share soon. Was there anything you had besides the pushback? Any secrets, Meek?
Diet is hard to discuss because for some people, diet is literally religious, and for some people, it becomes religion. There are certain diets that people, prescribe to others with no real knowledge. That eat exactly like how I'm doing because I got these like ideas, but it's not so simple. Not everybody, like you mentioned, food sensitivities. A diet that works really well for one person could make someone else sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, Doug, that I don't encourage people to worry too much about like a number on a scale, like, unless you're like a very high level competitor and you're worried about a weight class. Like it's not something you should worry about. But, like, how do you feel your energy levels? Can you fall asleep well? Can you wake up well? Do you feel like you're vital?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that are not even diet specific that would apply to all diets, which is like the quality of the food that you're putting in your body. Does it have glyphosate? Probably. It'd be better if it didn't. Does it have, what kind of like hormones are in the meat? What kind of antibiotics are in the feed that they give the fish or the shrimp that you're eating? So we have a lot of environmental toxins that are probably having, very serious effects on a lot of people. But it's so complicated. It's hard to make broad general statements without getting into like this specific diet or that specific diet. And to do that, you want to talk to the specific person.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think giving some thought to some of those other things like the food sensitivity test. I went through this. I just there's certain things in my diet seem to be making me lethargic and more brain fog. And lo and behold, the food sensitivity test showed a couple things, like for example barley, and also eggs. I used to eat eggs every single day, and they came up as sensitive. It wasn't highly sensitive, but as soon as I eliminated the eggs from my daily routine, I felt like just less brain fog and less lethargic. So it's just something to think about. What else do we have from the Instagram questions?
There's the proper way to train, the proper way for a white belt to train. Every day. Get in here.
Well,
Yeah.
just consistently would be maybe a better way to say it than every day. With consistency, not too much and not too little, because too much, too little, and that's going to be different person to person. If you can train every day and you feel like it's not burning you out, that's great. Some people can train twice a day for years on end, but if you can't maintain it for like 2 months, whatever your pace is, That's probably not the pace for you. It's going to be different for age and profile of the body. So you got to measure that yourself, like kind of a little bit more, and you're like, I'm starting to wear out, and then tone it back down. If you're like, I'm a little bit antsy, I could burn some more energy. But consistency is key.
Yeah. Balancing discipline with like excitement to train. Sometimes I'll purposely like take that extra day off, do nothing, because I'm like, it's like pulling back from something for a second. So I'm super excited to train on Monday. Like I'm fully engaged. I'm pumped to do it but then there's some days where it's like, I had to miss this session. So that's where discipline kicks in. I don't really want to go, but so it's finding that balance between discipline and excitement, I feel.
Yeah, expectations too. Sometimes people, their expectations are a little bit unrealistic, and then that gets in the way. As far as from a technical point of view, I think all things defense, defending the pins, because that's where the nightmare begins. When someone puts you in a position that you have no say in. I think we usually, there's value in learning some offense first, so you can go home and show the significant other what you learned to your friends, and that's what's most exciting. But I think what's going to be the most empowering is just finding all these positions that you get stuck in, and just putting focus on that. And then your offense will be set free at some point, but that's very difficult if you carry all that insecurity of, well, if I get stuck in this, that was a nightmare. And so the expectation, I found teaching, obviously if someone is like just really sincere and about being a competitor, yeah, they need to be on the mats more than the people that they're competing against usually. Maybe not, but there's value in being here all the time. But if you're not in like full-time competitor, I think 2.5 times a week is like the sweet spot. Based off my experience, I've seen, in my mind, I have so many examples of guys who got to a really solid level, solid black belt, and they consistently twice a week, sometimes 3, maybe 1 this week, but 2.5 would be the average, I would imagine, if we did the math on it. So yeah, consistency, expectations, and
we don't all have the same levels of athleticism, ability to recuperate, or free time from your job and family obligations. And so, it's supposed to enhance your life, not take it over. For some people, like, it is their life, and that's okay. But that you have to know, like, what is a positive contribution to your day to day. And I frequently remind people, I was rolling on, I want to say it was Saturday, with like white belt was like his 6th class ever. And he was just kind of like, what is going on? And I was telling him, like, the reason this stuff works, it was gi jiu-jitsu. It was like a judo-based class. We do a lot of throws in that class. And I was like, the reason this stuff works is because it takes a long time to learn. So don't be hasty and don't feel like, I don't know anything. It's fine. You showed up. Just keep showing up. The reason it's so effective, because, the reason you can, with experience, like, just totally manipulate someone with leverage, with strategy, with tactics, with intelligence, is because it took a long time to learn. It's not a gun. You can't just pick it up and give it to a child soldier. Like, this is a difficult thing to achieve, but it's because it takes a long time that makes it so effective. So you don't want it to be like, if you take this 3-week boot camp, you're ready to fight UFC, you're ready, it's like, that doesn't exist.
The Wimp to Warrior programs.
Yeah, no, this is real.
I've been increasingly thinking, like, is there some kind of metaphysical reality with these, maybe it's not the right word of calling them, but these are like sacred exercises of, like, after you put in so much of these, you unlock these abilities of, like, for example, patience. How many people started impatient, stopped training, and now they just didn't unlock anything? They were, lack of patience was in the way of their development. Maybe it's the discipline. Maybe it's the sacrifice. Like, I'm looking back in my life, I sacrificed a lot of, and looking back, all the money I had at that point, at certain points in my journey, was like, all right, that's a ticket to train somewhere, to go learn from somebody, to go and just invest in myself. And obviously, you still got to get on the mats and do everything. But when you look back at 10 years, 20 years of like dedication, sacrifice, patience, and all these different things that would suit you well for anything you try to do in life, right? Not just jiu-jitsu, learning any subject. That's been on my mind lately.
In many ways, grappling is a distillation of struggle. And it takes sort of like a microcosm of life, all the things that you go through, ups and downs and difficulties and ease and application of prior knowledge and, you know, aspiration to try something new. And it shrinks it down to like a 3, 4, 5 minute endeavor where you're really focused in the moment. And as a sport, including wrestling, it will either force you to weed out your own garden or it will weed you out of the garden. But like, there's no third option. There's going to be things in you. Like, come on, everyone gets tapped out. I was getting my ankles torn up 2 weeks ago by a world champion, right? And like, I can roll them pretty good, but he was tearing my ankles up, tapped 4 or 5 times in a row. And you're like, that is humiliating. Thank God. That's make you more humble. It's a good thing. So it's either like, you can either be like, no, he didn't get me, and just live in denial, or that part of you that was like kind of arrogant. Those are just weeds in your garden. Get rid of them. And if you can't do that weeding out, then you're the weed, and you're about to get removed from the garden. You'll start finding excuses. Oh, I don't know. That place is, you know. You just delude yourself. So it's that confrontation with self. That's the real value.
And it's lifelong, right? Because how many people, in all things, sometimes we get some knowledge, and then we go back to the old ways of like arrogance. Like, so this kind of helps. It's almost like the path of trying to
You pick the weeds, but they do grow back.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to maintain the garden.
Yeah, yeah.
You just be like, I did it. I got the weeds out. Did you just walk off? My garden is complete. I am a perfected being, you know?
Yeah.
That's the biggest weed of all.
Do you have any updates on upcoming fights or competitions?
I probably won't fight for quite a while for a variety of reasons that we don't need to go into. But, yeah, we'll see. I'll let you know.
All right.
But if you're in the Michigan, was it Detroit? Where are you going to be competing this weekend?
I don't know Detroit well enough to know where I mean, I could ask the guy, but I didn't. I just know I have to be in Detroit, and I'll get an address, and then I just show up at some random place. It sounds shadier than it is. It's just that, like, I'm not worried about what venue it's at. But I'll be like, this address, and I just show up, and I know how the system is, right? Ero's planning to come. It will be a shock to him. He'll be like, it'll be strange for him. It's kind of like bringing someone from a foreign country to, like, rodeo. Right? You're like, we ride cows. They're boy cows. You gotta stay on for 8 seconds, not 7, 8, you know? And they're like, okay. And you're like, and then we jump on cows with rope. You gotta turn him onto his back. If you can do that, then you're a cowboy. You know? And it's like, oh, cowboy, you know? Because it's just so weird. Or maybe NASCAR. That's another sport in America. You're like, we only take left turns at 200 miles an hour. And it's strange to someone that's not from that culture, to the extent that it's even strange to us, unless you're a NASCAR person or a rodeo person, as just like a normative American. We could extend that to Canada. They're basically just, you know, Americans with different passports. Unless you're in those cultures, it's kind of like a side thing. You're like, yeah, I kind of heard of that. I know people do it. I've never seen it live. And Kabaddi's kind of like that in India. Their main sport is cricket. And people have heard of the sport, and the people that are really into it are really into it. But the rest of the country is just kind of like, yeah, that's that thing, you know, they like ride the cow.
Cricket's like by far number one.
Yo,
right?
it's huge, which is amazing because cricket
I
is
know cricket here, right?
objectively boring. It's worse than baseball. Like it's a snore fest.
That's like in the UK too, right?
It is a British sport.
That's
They
probably
play in
think
West
with the
Indies,
history
too.
of the
For
colony.
sure.
and,
Not just cricket, but a lot of sports spread through the process of colonialism. A lot of sports, obviously. I mean, look at golf. It's like a recreation of Scotland, right? It's like You know, it's like, nah, we got to recreate. So you go everywhere and it's like green lawns and stuff. That doesn't grow in Dubai. But they got a golf course. You know, so soccer, right? Golf. That's British colonialism.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. The history, right? The history behind the words we say and what we do. It's really interesting, fascinating to hear some of the origins of these things. What do we have? Do we have any other messages on the Instagram? I think there was a few in there. We do want to get to all of you. And again, thank you for tuning in and reaching out. This engagement, through your messages and the feedback, it's fuel. So we appreciate it.
The last one was just a topic. It just said police and BBJ.
Police and BJJ?
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's it seems like common sense to us,
We're advocates for mandatory purple belt to be on the police force.
Yeah, but I also think like there's got to be some like emotional intelligence training or something too, right? Because some of the stuff that unfortunately we've witnessed, this stuff has been blasted in our face, and probably for who knows how many different reasons. But
just as a blanket concept, it's not going to make it worse.
But if the heart is not in the proper order, it can make it worse, right? Now you got some of these guys, cranking on things.
Put them with Professor Brick and let them get tapped out 3,000 times. That's what I'm saying. Like and I could be wrong. I'm sure there are always exceptions to the rule. You can put people through systems that have produced good results in the past, and they can, despite our best efforts, maintain the arrogance that we're trying to help them overcome.
Yeah.
But it is really hard to be arrogant when you get choked and have to beg for someone's mercy. And that's not hyperbolic. You really are like, please let me breathe. Please don't break my arm. Please, do not remove the ligaments on my knees. Please. Like, you're begging. It's the most humiliating thing you can think of. Begging, please. Oh, please, uncle, like a child. So yeah. I think that it's called submission wrestling, and submitting is humiliating. It is, but it's good for your heart. It's good for your heart, and we all went through it. Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers getting caught and just being like, did he just do magic? You're like, that was magical, because you don't even understand what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can, quickly make everybody on the force at like a purple belt level, that would be like, wow, that's amazing.
Like I said though, there's no click.
Yeah.
The reason it works is because it takes a long time, and it should take a long time, because we're not just talking about outward movements. We're talking about kind of like crafting a different version of yourself from the inside. It's almost like therapy, and you're your own therapist. Really, in many ways, it's autodidactic therapy. You're sitting there like, oh, excuse me, like, so tell me how you feel. You're like, oh, I feel very confused. And what was that like? It was humiliating. And you're like having an internal dialogue. I'm like kind of joking around, but the dialogue is there. We all have the dialogue. Sometimes it's not explicit, but the dialogue is there. How did he get me? Who are you talking to? Right? That's a dialogue, right? It's like, man, like, do I got to train more? Like, what happened? What's he doing? Like, you're having questions in the dialogue. That dialogue is very healthy for us, I believe.
But can you, now that idea, the process of getting to that goal, of getting everybody to a certain level, the unfortunate reality, I think, with a lot of government jobs, it doesn't have to be government jobs, but there's going to be a lot of people who are just looking for any opportunity to like call in sick or to not go to work. And, now you got me grappling X amount of times a week. Well, my shoulder is sore, and you did this to me, so I'm going to sue you because
like I said, as a general concept, it's like just a blanket statement.
Yeah,
it would be great.
Yeah,
I don't actually see it happening for a variety of reasons.
But supposedly it just passed in Michigan, right? Like there's when Hoist Gracie was here doing that seminar, he was heading to Michigan after, because they had, if I understand correctly, passed a bill where now that's in the works. Like you have to get to like a blue belt level or something.
That's what's up.
Did you guys hear about that?
No.
So it's in the works. I think it's obviously an amazing idea, and I also, at first thought, I think it's good to have the training done in the community, because that's another part of this process. Like you're in the community training with all the different members of the community, and I think that's gonna. There's a potential there, I think, to make you more a part of the community, right? These are the people you're policing, right? This is. But if we're training completely separate, there might be some other challenges that come along with that. But if I'm going too deep, it's a great idea. Definitely get on the mats and let's figure this stuff out together.
Some of my favorite training partners are police.
Yeah, it's.
I take it very serious.
Yeah, we have a good group of guys here, and it's been a tough year for all of us. Tough couple of years, and we've all been pitted against each other. And the police obviously were part of that process, a big part, right? And God willing, we're going to be on a path towards healing all collectively together, and reaching our full potential, hopefully. Man, that's a pretty good show, right? It's a pretty. I think we're at the end of our show. Do you guys have anything you want to get off your chest or say to the audience before we end the show today?
Yes, I'm very fortunate that not too many people are watching this.
Oh, we got 300,000 right now.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I know that's not true.
No, we did the Google ads in Punjab.
That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. Nah, it's just like I don't.
The live stream comments are just Mika.
Number one.
Yeah. But it's nice to know that I probably know by face at least the people that are tuning in. I like the lack of anonymity, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I have to be all politically correct.
Oh yeah, that's
if the police just say no, I'm joking.
Yeah, you got to subscribe to Meek's OnlyFans to get that content, to get the real. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm gonna we'll call it before we
get
end
canceled.
up. We get canceled, or we end up in another hour-long conversation. Yeah. So thank you again for the support, and we look forward to being consistent and hopefully being a blessing to you all. And thank you all.
Like, subscribe, leave comments. That's all I got.
Listen to Doug.
Mark your calendar for August 7th. Merchandise drop. Support us.
Yeah, that's.
Leaving comments and asking us questions about it is even better. That way, it's more involving to the community, and everybody's like, "Yo, I asked that question. They actually answered it." So, yeah, everybody just get involved.
All the questions that you ask me in person, I'll happily answer them in person, but just throw them on the comments at the bottom, just because it helps the algorithm, helps us out. So I'm happy to talk about it with you at the school. Just throw it on to support.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.